Can you imagine starting your workday with a jug of beer, or your boss offering it to you instead of coffee before an important meeting? It might sound like a joke, but for centuries, that was the reality across much of Europe. The continent ran on a very intimate relationship with alcohol. People didn't necessarily live in a state of perpetual drunkenness, but they did live in a light, constant alcoholic haze. And then, a new and mysterious drink arriving from the East changed everything. It wasn't meant to make you forget, but to help you remember, not to dull the senses, but to sharpen them. This is the story of how, according to one fascinating theory, trading beer for coffee didn't just make us more productive, it helped build the world we live in today. To understand the scale of this revolution, we first have to travel back to a Europe before the 17th century, a continent where, in many cities, drinking water could be genuinely risky. River and well water in urban areas was often contaminated, a breeding ground for diseases like dysentery and typhoid fever. Faced with that risk, fermented drinks like beer and wine weren't just a vice, they were an alternative that seemed safer. These drinks were considered almost a food, a source of calories that supplemented people's diets, especially among the poorer classes. They were consumed all day long, from breakfast to dinner, and not just by men. Women, and at times, even children, drank them too. The rhythm of the workday was set by the rhythm of alcohol. Of course, we shouldn't picture a chaotic, constant drunken stupor. It was often low-alcohol beer or watered-down wine. But the effect was undeniable: a latent drowsiness, a lack of precision, and limited productivity. Sharp thinking and concentration were hard to cultivate in a society that spent its days under the influence of a depressant. It's a provocative theory to consider that the world was operating at half capacity, waiting for an antidote that was about to arrive from the mountains of Africa.
The story of coffee's discovery is wrapped in legend, and the most famous one takes us to the highlands of Ethiopia around the 9th century. It tells of a goat herder named Kaldi, who one day noticed that his goats, after nibbling on the red berries of a certain shrub, started leaping around with a frantic energy. Intrigued, Kaldi tried the fruit himself and felt a vitality and mental clarity he had never experienced before. He brought the berries to a nearby monastery, where the monks' first reaction was suspicion. One abbot, fearing it was the devil's work, threw the fruit into the fire. But then the magic happened. As the beans roasted, they gave off a delicious aroma. The monks gathered the beans, ground them, and brewed an infusion that they discovered kept them awake through their long hours of prayer. Although this story is more myth than fact, we do know that coffee's botanical origin lies in Ethiopia. From there, its cultivation spread to the Arabian Peninsula.
In the Islamic world, coffee was welcomed as a gift and came to be known as kahwa, a term that originally referred to wine, which earned it the metaphorical nickname, the wine of Islam. That's where the first café or coffee houses sprang up, centers of social and intellectual life. Arab traders tried to protect their thriving business, but a secret that powerful couldn't be kept forever. Coffee's gateway into Europe was Venice. In the early 17th century, Venetian merchants began importing the first sacks. At first, it was sold in pharmacies as an expensive medicinal product, but its popularity grew quickly.
Its arrival wasn't without controversy. Some of Pope Clement VIII's advisors asked him to ban it, calling it a bitter invention of Satan. A popular anecdote, though probably apocryphal, claims the Pope wanted to try it himself before deciding. They served him a cup, and he was so delighted that, according to legend, he declared, "This devil's drink is so delicious it would be a shame to let the infidels have it all to themselves. Let's outwit Satan by baptizing it." With that blessing, real or legendary, coffee spread. One of Europe's first coffee houses is believed to have opened in Venice around 1645, though the exact date is debated. The real explosion came soon after. By the mid-century, coffee houses appeared in England, first in Oxford and then in London in 1652. The success was overwhelming, and by the end of the century, London had hundreds of them.
In London, coffee houses earned a nickname that captures their impact: the penny universities. For the price of a cup of coffee, any man, regardless of his class, could walk in and take part in the most stimulating conversations of the era. These places were the 17th century equivalent of a social network, a hotbed of information and debate fueled by caffeine. Each coffee house had its own regular crowd.
Merchants gathered at Edward Lloyd's, laying the groundwork for what would become the famous Lloyd's of London insurance market. Near the stock exchange, brokers made and lost fortunes over their cups. Scientists like Isaac Newton debated physics and mathematics, while writers like John Dryden argued about literature. It was here that modern journalism began to take shape.
King Charles II even tried to ban them in 1675, accusing them of being hotbeds of sedition. But public outcry was so strong that he had to back down. It's been argued that coffee, as a stimulant, encourages sharper, more linear thinking, in contrast to the stupor of alcohol. From that perspective, coffee houses became the gym of the mind for a new era, the age of reason. Coffee wasn't just waking up individuals, it was helping wake up an entire society. If London was the cradle of commerce, Paris was the heart of philosophy and revolution. No place embodies that spirit better than Café Procope, founded in 1686. Within its walls sat figures like Voltaire, Rousseau, and Diderot, discussing the ideas that would shake the old regime to its core: liberty, equality, and the rights of man. Legend has it that Voltaire drank dozens of cups of coffee a day, a figure that, while probably exaggerated, shows the connection between the drink and intellectual work. Unlike the aristocratic salons, Parisian cafes were open to a much broader public. It was in this environment that Diderot and D'Alembert found fertile ground for their great project, the Encyclopédie, using cafes as informal offices and centers of debate. The French government, like the British one, viewed these places with suspicion and filled them with spies. But repression couldn't hold back the tide. Caffeine wasn't just stimulating minds, it was fueling a collective debate that, cup by cup, was eroding the authority of the old order.
The ideas that flourished in cafes didn't stay confined to conversation. They became the gunpowder behind two of the most important transformations in history: the French Revolution and the Industrial Revolution. In July of 1789, Paris was a powder keg. On July 12th, a young journalist named Camille Desmoulins jumped onto a table outside the Café de Foy. He rallied the crowd with a passionate speech, urging them to take up arms. The electrified crowd followed him. 2 days later, the Bastille fell. Cafes had been the nodes where the unrest was organized. Meanwhile, in Britain, the Industrial Revolution demanded a new kind of worker: punctual, disciplined, and alert. Alcohol was incompatible with the precise work of machinery.
Coffee turned out to be the perfect drink for this era, helping workers endure long shifts and stay focused. It became the lubricant that kept the gears of the new industrial economy turning. But the story of how coffee conquered the world has a dark, bitter chapter. Rising demand was met with vast plantations in the colonies, a system built on the violence of slavery. The most tragic example was Saint-Domingue, present-day Haiti. In the 18th century, it became the most profitable colony in the world and the leading producer of sugar and coffee, a productivity achieved at the cost of unimaginable suffering. Hundreds of thousands of Africans were enslaved and worked to death on the plantations. Conditions were so brutal that historians estimate a horrifyingly high proportion of newly arrived enslaved people died within their first year. After the Haitian Revolution, attention shifted to Brazil, which became the new coffee giant, also built on enslaved labor. Brazil was the last country in the Western Hemisphere to abolish slavery in 1888, in a complex process shaped by both international pressure and internal abolitionist movements. It's impossible to separate coffee's history as a catalyst for the Enlightenment from its history as an engine of slavery. The very same cup that symbolized clarity of mind in a London or Paris cafe was stained with the sweat and blood of enslaved people thousands of miles away. Today, coffee's journey has reached every corner of the planet. It's one of the most heavily traded commodities in the world, with more than 2 billion cups consumed every single day. From the morning espresso to coffee with friends, it's woven into the fabric of our lives. The history of coffee is the history of modernity itself, with all its light and shadow. It's the story of how a bean from an Ethiopian mountainside managed to wake up a continent, fuel debates that toppled kings, and power the factories that built our industrial world, all while sustaining a cruel system of exploitation. It's a drink that gave us the clarity to question the world, and that today forces us to question the price of that clarity. So the next time you hold a cup of coffee, remember you're not just drinking a beverage, you're holding centuries of history, revolution, debate, and human connection. You're holding one of the elixirs that, for better and for worse, helped shape the modern world. What's your relationship with coffee? Is it fuel to get through the workday, a social ritual, or something more? Tell us in the comments, and if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe.